Good morning, everybody. What's going on? Welcome back to Movie Mornings. I am your host, Martino, and today we are talking about Ant-Man and the Wasp. Yes, that's right. The one from 2018, the follow-up to 2015's Ant-Man. This one is also directed by Peyton Reed. I can't wait to get into this one. We just watched it, and it's going to be a lot of fun because this is obviously leading us into Ant-Man and the Wasp, QUANTUMANIA, coming very, very soon here. And also joining me today is Mr. Jose Espinel. Jose, how's it going, buddy?
I am great. I am glad to be here. This was a very fun revisit of this movie. As you said, this is leading up to Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, which I'm super excited to go watch, and I just can't wait to get into this movie with you.
Yes, so before we all get abducted here in the world, please hit the like button below, subscribe to the channel, leave some feedback in the comment section, share this with your friends, hit that bell for notifications. That's much appreciated. And yeah, dude, look, I rewatched this today with you, and this is kind of where I'm at. I can tell you my experience with this movie the first time I saw it was definitely a feeling of being very underwhelmed by it. This is when I saw it back in the theater. I remember feeling like a lot of the bits were definitely like the best bits were done in the trailer, and so I felt underwhelmed seeing it in the theater. And also we were coming off of Infinity War, which was this big grand epic Marvel movie, and this one, obviously being an Ant-Man movie, went down to a smaller scale again, of course, but I just felt underwhelmed by that, I think, at the time. But now I like it a little bit better, I won't lie to you. I do think the first half of this film is much better than the second half. I think by the time we get to the second half, the movie does become quite a bit of a mess. I still find it to be a bit underwhelming. I think a lot of the humor that they try to play in the third act is very lowbrow. My biggest disappointment, I think, all in all, is the fact that the movie's called Ant-Man and the Wasp, and while we get action with both of them, it's action separately and not so much together in the third act. And I wanted that team up a lot more because I do think that those two work so well together. Also, the villain, Ava, Ghost or whatever, I did not think worked here. They have another villain problem on their hands, but this time it's a different problem than what I think the first movie had. With the first movie, I really found the story of the villain to be pretty good. What I didn't like was the performance of the villain. This is almost vice versa to that, where I think the performance of the villain is better with Ava. I did not like the story. I thought the story was a bit convoluted and messy. I didn't find it to be all that compelling, and by the time we do get to the third act with that villain, I just didn't feel the stakes that I think that they really thought they had in the film. So I think that was a huge issue with this movie. And all in all, again, it's like a lot of those action sequences are stuff that was shown in the trailer. It just feels a little bit more underwhelming. And then you have Walton Goggins, who as Sonny Birch, who I actually think just would have been a better main villain. And I think that this movie, its biggest issue is it's biting off a lot more than it can chew. Like, it's trying to do way too much in this runtime. And I think that you got this actor like Walton Goggins, who's one of the strongest players in the movie, but yet you don't do a whole lot with him. I wanted a lot more of that, and a lot of the focus went to Ava, because obviously Ghost is the main villain. Again, I just thought Sonny Birch would have been a better villain to play up in this film personally. And they didn't. And I mean, that's fine. I do think Paul Rudd is crazy entertaining to watch in this film still. I think, again, the chemistry between him and Evangeline Lilly, it really works great. Obviously, this also sets up Agent Woo for the MCU, which I really think is a very strong character here. He's cartoonish, but in a way that really worked for me because the stuff he was doing and the jokes he was saying, they actually landed. And I also like that dynamic of that character of Agent Woo, where he was not he was this agent, but you just felt like he just would have been happier serving cocktails or something. Like, he's got that sort of thing playing for him. Like, that's just, I love that dynamic. And so that cartoonish element of him worked a lot better than, say, the cartoonish element of Darren Cross in the first film. So I did enjoy that a lot better. The other thing I noticed here, the score is actually stronger in this film, I think, than the first one. That's one thing that definitely got improved. As far as like the quantum realm stuff, you get a little bit more of it, and obviously it's setting up more for Quantumania, but I think my issue there again is it's just not much more than what we got in the first one. But Obviously, Quantumania is about to explode with all that, so I'm not gonna like give this movie too much flack for it. That was one thing I thought they maybe could have done a little bit more with. All in all, I think that Michael Douglas is strong again. I think he brings a lot of the humor too. And also, I really like that they gave his character a little bit more of an emotional weight this time around. I felt like with his wife and trying to find his wife. And when you see that reunion between, and spoilers now at this point, but when you see that reunion between him and his wife, man, it's a strong, I mean, it plays. Like that scene really plays with those two actors who are so veteran at this, and they did a good job there. I don't want to dive into that too much yet because we'll discuss a little bit further, but I'm just trying to get my overall thoughts out of the way here at this point. But yeah, dude, I just find the second half of the movie to be a little bit more of a mess and not so much the simplicity that I thought the first film thrived on so much, and that this one was trying to do way too much for its runtime. But overall, I do like the movie. I still thought it was a good time to watch. I didn't think it was just as great or as strong as the first film. But that's kind of where I'm at this point. Also, Lawrence Fishburne is a very good actor. Another one I liked what he did here for the most part. Again, he was tied in with Ghost, and every time Ghost was on the screen, I just couldn't help but to find myself wanting to fast forward through those bits, for the most part. It led to a couple little jokes here and there. But again, some of the jokes here just weren't great. Also, we did get the trio again with Dalsmatian and not Luis Guzman. I did what you did almost that one time with Michael Pena and T.I., and those three, I think, are just as strong here as they were in the first film, again, for the most part. There's a couple times Luis went for some jokes in the third act, and again, it plays into that lowbrow humor that I didn't really like about this one, but overall, that trio really works in this movie. So, yeah, I really enjoyed that a lot. And, like I said, there are some good bits. A lot of the science just gets really messy. I think at the end of the day, the movie came together into a cohesive story. It just, for a minute there, just deviated and got a little messy. So those are my thoughts on the film. Jose, what do you think of the movie overall?
Well, I have to disagree with you on Ghost. I actually really did enjoy her villain. I think if we would have had either Sonny Birch or just Ava and had like more of a backstory about her,
that could be very much
would have been a way
possible
stronger-
too, actually, because
like,
I don't disagree
if she
with
would have
you.
had if she would have had a lot more of a backstory from like earlier on, then she would have been a way stronger main villain.
Yes, I agree.
I do agree with you. The fact that using two villains in this didn't really work for it.
Well, three if you count Lawrence
I honestly
Fishburne as a villain for the most of it, even though he kind of redeems himself earlier. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, but like I definitely would have rather seen more of like I would have rather seen more all Ava than all Sonny Birch in this. I feel like Sonny Birch wasn't really a character that fit in this movie, in my opinion. Especially when you think about what kind of movie this is.
He was definitely wasted in this.
His character just doesn't fit the overall plot and story of this movie. That's why I think if we would have had just Ava and had more of a backstory with her character, then it would have. Because obviously her backstory makes sense. I think what we got makes sense. I just feel like if you would have gotten a little more, it would have played better. Like you said, the score is amazing. I absolutely loved it in this movie.
Much better.
All the jokes that were said, I laughed at. They were hilarious. Hank, I definitely preferred his role this time around than in the first one, especially with
they gave
like
more
said, the emotional side when he he was going to find his wife and he actually eventually found her. That scene where they reunite and like kiss and stuff like that was so powerful. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah.
Scott and Hope definitely a lot. I liked them more in this one than in the first one. I feel like they were actually it's because I liked the relationship side to it. It was nice chemistry. I do kind of agree with you on the fact that they didn't really fight much together, but when they did, it was really, really cool. I would have preferred to see more of that, but overall, I liked the fight scenes in this movie a lot, especially between Scott, Hope, and Ava. Those were some really cool fight scenes.
Yeah,
I would have liked to see more between the three of them. That would have been like towards the end, whenever the three of them are fighting, like that was a really cool sequence.
Mhm.
I definitely would have liked to see more of that in this movie. Like I said, if she was the only villain in this movie, then we would have had more of that fighting,
Yeah.
which I would have really liked. I honestly didn't like Lawrence Fishburne's character at all. I feel like he was just honestly also wasted in this movie.
I think that's fair. Yeah.
I mean, he's an amazing actor, don't get me wrong.
Right.
I just feel like his character in this time around in this movie was completely wasted.
Yeah, so is the girl that's playing Ava too, to be fair. Like I thought she was a really good performer.
That's what I mean. Like,
and-
if she would have had if she was the main villain and had more screen time, then she would have done so should have been we would see it in a completely different sense. Sonny Birch, for the time he was in the movie, I feel like he was more of the comedic villain in this movie.
Yeah, but that's I think they should have played him as a more serious villain and then just used him as the main villain.
I just don't think that,
or like you said, just giving Ghost all the time.
Ava,
yeah.
Because like her character in this movie makes more sense as the main villain than Sonny Birch, because when you really think about, like, you know, this is talking about Quantumania, like, you know, the quantum realm and all that, and she basically got zapped by it and got her quote unquote powers from it. So like making her the main villain would have just made more sense for this movie. I get where
you're coming from.
I disagree with you on the part about not showing the quantum realm enough, because I think that it gave us just enough to set up for Quantumania.
Yeah, I said like I'm not going to give that much
I feel like too much.
Yeah,
I feel like too much quantum realm would have just been, because then like we're just stuck in the quantum realm for the entire movie. That's even more boring than what we actually got.
Yeah, no,
in this movie.
It's not. That wasn't necessarily like, I wasn't saying that as like a blatant issue necessarily. I was more saying it as in like, there just wasn't much more, I mean, to it here. But I said, like, I'm not going to give that flack because obviously Quantumania is going to explode with it. And I got what it was setting up. I wasn't saying it as like a blatant issue. I was just saying when if I'm going to like look at this movie from a creativity standpoint, that definitely wasn't a part of it that added, you know, to the creativity of the movie, where it could have been a point, but I understand why they like condensed that down.
I honestly think it helped the movie, in my opinion.
Well, that's good. I just felt
especially when you think about what happened to Scott when he went into the quantum realm and came back, with the whole thing with Hank's wife and how she put an antenna, you know, like all that stuff. I think it really actually helped the movie. Awesome. That's actually one of the parts that I liked the most about the movie. Even though overall I did still prefer the first one to this one. I still just think that the bits with the quantum realm, when it was used, I think, in my opinion, was one of the stronger points of this movie.
That's fair. I see exactly what you're saying, because like I said, it did lead to that really great reunion with Hank and his wife, and it did allow Hank to do more in the movie, and so I'm appreciative of it for that reason. I think though, like you were saying though, in the first film, when we see the quantum realm, it just felt like there were more stakes to be had there, like with Scott being in it. And I understand that like Hank has been studying it a lot longer too, and things of that nature. But
there was still stakes for Hank when he was in there, because like he was trying to get his wife before, you know, the thing he's changed, and it was gonna be another century till she could find her to be able to get out of there. You know, I still feel like there was maybe not as, because I feel like it's this. I mean, it was almost kind of the same stakes in my opinion. Well, that's just me though.
Yes, exactly. That's my point. It wasn't like this anything that was amped up. And then my other issue, not with the quantum realm stuff itself. If you single out the quantum realm stuff in this film and then you just like look at it as like one focal point in the movie, it's fine. I think like because it's being mixed in with all these other things that are going on, I'm feeling less of that weight here than I did in the first movie, because they, like I said, this movie really is biting off more than it can chew, I think, by the third act of it. Where
and I think that my main issue with you know, that it was biting more than it could chew wasn't so much the quantum realm part. It was more of the fact that there was like too many villains in this movie. That Ant-Man and that Scott and Hope had to fight. If it was just one villain and we were just transitioning between the main villain and the quantum realm, it would have played a lot better.
That's what I mean. It's like if you single out any of those things as focal points, they work as individual things, but because they're all shoved in together, you're losing a lot of the power that I think the first film had, especially like I said, because like while I had problems with Corey Stoll's performance, Yellow Jacket as a character like ended up working for me in terms of like how he played as a villain. Like I understood his villain point a lot more. They had more focus on that villain in terms of building out his story.
Yeah,
and,
that's why they just needed one villain for this one.
Yeah.
Because then it definitely would have. I think if they had just Ava and gave her more of a backstory, I think that this movie would have been 10 times better than the first one.
Yeah, but
in my opinion,
I think that's why Kang is going to complement the Ant-Man universe a lot in this third one, because like we've had villain problems I think in both movies now. Two different issues with villains, but I also think that in both movies we've had issues with villains. So I'm very excited to see Kang be a villain in one of these, because that's gonna, I think, advance it's gonna fix their villain problem that they've had in these first two. So again, I do think, like, while this movie I think is definitely the weaker of the two, I do think that there are things that they did that did improve upon the first movie. Like there are certain like little things, and like I said, I definitely I appreciate them trying to be more ambitious, or Peyton Reed trying to be more ambitious with the direction for sure. But I just thought maybe it was a little too ambitious. And also I also think the gags, like the part where Scott, or I'm sorry, Mrs. Pym. Do you remember her first name by chance?
Is it Janet?
Janet. When Janet,
I think it was Janet Pym. Yeah,
you're correct. But when Janet, ends up I don't want to say possessing, but kind of possessing Scott in that moment, that was a bit that you could tell the movie thought was a lot funnier than it was. I mean, obviously it led to the hand-holding thing, which got a laugh, but I think the bit they thought was going to be a lot funnier than it played, and so the little things like that, just definitely were a lot more weak. I also thought the giant man here was very lowbrow. They tried to play it as a joke, and that didn't really work for me, especially when you see it in Civil War and it's not really played for laughs. It's just kind of a piece of it, and so I thought that was kind of weak here. So there's a lot of little things like that, some little lines that I can nitpick here and there, I suppose. So yeah, this one just, I don't know. It's the second half was convoluted. I really, though, I thoroughly loved everything happening in the first act. I thought, playing into the house arrest angle was a really smart and clever way to kind of re-enter the Scott's world.
I meant to say too that Randall Park was one of my favorites in this movie too.
He was great.
Him and Paul Rudd definitely played off each other. Nicely in this movie.
He felt like he fit right in.
Their interactions, their interactions were always just so funny. It always made me laugh. Every single interaction they had,
and I liked what that set up for WandaVision later. Obviously, getting more expansion on that character was, So
I swear, this guy plays an agent in every single superhero, supervillain movie or show that he's in. He was an agent in Aquaman.
Oh right, that's right. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah,
and he was an agent in that too.
That's
he was
right.
An agent in Aquaman.
That's right. I forgot all about that till you said it, but.
And he's gonna be in Aquaman 2 as an agent again.
Yeah, that's true. I forgot all about that, but yeah, you're right. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah, I just thought he fit right into this world, and so he was also a good play. I also liked the return of Judy Greer and Bobby Cannavale as Paxton and Mrs. Lang. I guess at this point, she's probably Mrs. Paxton now, but I like their relationship coming back into this, and just this now Paxton again, it really does play right where the first film left off, where Paxton and Scott are now friends, and he really likes Scott, and I like how he's really trying here to defend Scott, but he really can't because he's on the other side of the law, and he's kind of actually, honey, they do have the right to just come in, and he's really trying here. I thought they created such a nice dynamic and a good relationship.
And I was gonna say that the Three Stooges in this movie for me
strong.
Were on as strong as always. I mean, in the first one they were strong. This one I feel like they're even stronger. I absolutely loved. They're just the best. Honestly, if we didn't have them in these movies, then these movies would be absolute trash.
Well, not only that,
they bring a comedic force
Yeah.
that's just unprecedented, honestly, in these movies.
I mean, not only that, I think David Dalsmashian actually has the best bit in the entire movie with Baba Yaga. I think that is
Oh
hysterical.
my god, that shit was so funny. And then when they see the ghost and he starts singing that song, I started laughing.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I really don't like the ghost as a villain, but it led to that bit, which was really, really good. A very strong bit. And just, yeah, I loved his old Baba Yaga. You don't know Baba Yaga.
Also,
Hysterical.
Scott and his daughter in this movie were amazing. I loved
Yes.
their scenes.
Yes, thank you.
Absolutely incredible.
I think
they were absolutely incredible. They played off each other so well.
I think in terms of playing into a lot of the stuff that I liked about the first movie, it really came down to Scott and his daughter for me here. Especially that scene toward the end where, you know, she's talking, and obviously that set up a big thing for QUANTUMANIA. That whole conversation they had toward the end about her partnering up with him obviously was, I like that was here, and the scene was just so heartfelt.
You can see bits of it in the trailer too for QUANTUMANIA. That there's definitely they've been partnering, and that he now trusts his daughter to basically take up the mantle that his father also now holds, which was really cool.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah, that was one of the best things about the movie was their relationship for sure. Outside of, again, like I said, I love when Scott and Evangeline Lilly are on the screen together, though. I want them more together. And you're right. They had the fight with Ghost,
I feel like we're gonna have more of them together in this one coming up.
I hope so, because that was a huge disappointment for me, especially with everything we talked about the last conversation with the first movie, because we were talking about how exciting it kind of was, the way that they were setting up the Wasp so well to be, you know, this partner of Scott's, and they really they gave her stuff to do, but separately, and that disappointed me quite a bit. And I thought there was a lot more they could have given them both. I thought the fight with the ghost at the end could have been a lot more compelling. They're sitting there getting their asses kicked, and it ends real quick because Hank and Janet come in to interrupt the whole thing, and it just, I don't know, that could have been done better. That could have been a much more compelling and better action sequence than it was, and that was very disappointing. And especially when you see the first scene, and again, I say like Walton Goggins was wasted, but it did also lead to a very cool action scene with the two of them. Well, actually with Ghost more so, because Ghost came into the whole deal when she was trying to buy the tech off of Sonny Birch, and then Ghost comes in, kind of ruins the whole thing, and then enter Scott, which was epic, and those two go at it, you know, with Ghost. And I thought that was a really great action sequence, and it just needed so many more of those. It really did, because when their chemistry is together, I mean, it plays. And Evangeline Lilly is one of those, like, she's such a good actress, man. I mean, she really, when I was talking about Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer getting together and having their little reunion here, even stronger, I think, is when Evangeline Lilly sees her mother again. Gosh, that was such an emotional moment toward the end, and she is so good in that moment, and it really replicates that moment from the first movie where he's telling her what happened to her mother, and you get that carryover here that's very strong, I think, and with that sort of emotion and heart. And I think Peyton Reed just does so well with that stuff. You know, when it comes to like the emotions and the heart, like that's Peyton Reed. Reed really thrives at that just as much as he does the comedy, and those are the two things I think he really works best at, which we just didn't get enough of. But the stuff that's there, it plays. You know what I mean? Like
I can definitely see him doing a lot more emotional stuff in this next one that's coming up for sure, and I can't wait to see what happens, because just from the trailer alone, I could tell there's gonna be a lot more emotional stuff in this one. Yeah,
and I do think that sometimes does, and this is, I think, probably, and I love Kevin Feige, but I think that this can sometimes be the unfortunate side of having him run these movies, is I really do think that sometimes he limits the director's potential because he wants to play it a little bit more safe. Like I think for this film, he was like, okay, Peyton Reed, I want you to do something small, you know, don't make it big, because we got Endgame coming. This just needs to be like a nice little breather before then. And I get that, but I hope that in this movie that Feige sees that like Peyton Reed has a lot of potential that he can do, and then lets him bring that to Quantumania, because I think that there's so much potential there, and I want to see him just like really go off in that movie, you know, and show everything he can do as a filmmaker. And that if that doesn't happen, I'm going to be very disappointed, you know, because
right.
he really does, man. I watch him as a filmmaker, and he really hits. I mean, you look at his Luke Skywalker moment in Mandalorian alone, the way that he brought that to the forefront, I thought that was just so good, you know, and the way that he played that in this emotion. And then, you know, I know this is a Mandalorian discussion, but I'm just talking about Peyton Reed. I mean, the way that he did the scene with Grogu and having to leave Din Djarin, and how emotional that was in the Mandalorian. It's like, that guy is a very talented filmmaker that really deserves to shine, and I want to see a lot more of that in this next film, and I hope that we get it. I really do. And especially because this is the story I think he really wants to tell with Quantumania. Obviously not having seen the movie, but I think that everything that's been planted has been leading to it. Like, you could tell, like, he's just got it. It's kind of sitting there at the precipice of all this, just ready to explode, you know. And I can't wait to see it, dude. I really can't, man. At the very least, I could say that this movie definitely still got me more excited for Quantumania rewatching it today, because the seeds are there, man. The seeds are all there, and if you're really paying attention, you'll find it. If you got that sharp eye.
And I remember rewatching it now.
Yeah.
I didn't catch this the first time I watched it, or the other times that I watched it, and I caught it this time, was the little Easter egg that they put in there of King's world. I guess, quote unquote, what's now called the TVA in Loki.
Yeah.
Which was really cool to see when Hank and Janet were, you know, escaping the quantum realm, going back to reality. You could see a little, like, for like a split second, the little bubble where his world is, which is really cool to see. Planting a little Easter egg there for Quantumania like 4 years ago.
Yeah. Absolutely, 100%. There are actually some, again, though, like another thing that Peyton Reed definitely carried over from the first film that I thought he had some really great moments with here, are those perspective shots, you know, of you know, the smaller world that they kind of exist in a little bit, you know, but you get this really great perspective on some of these bigger scale things that. And especially in this, I'll go ahead and show this off now really quick, because I do have the 4K edition that came out upon release.
Of course,
that changing cover, which I love so much. But the thing is, it's a nice 4K, but it's not IMAX enhanced. The best way to watch this film right now is on Disney Plus. It is the IMAX enhanced version, and that's really where a lot of those perspective shots really shined for me. It was in this version of the film that was the IMAX enhanced, and I really enjoyed watching it this way, because I know I didn't see this in IMAX when I saw it in the theater the first time. I saw it in standard, so to see those, this probably, I don't know if it's my first time watching it this way. It probably is, but it was just very cool to see. I did enjoy a lot of those shots.
I think the first time I watched it was definitely in IMAX. I remember.
That's cool. Yeah.
I was in. So if this was 5 years ago, I was in Columbus. This was my senior year of high school, right before I was going to graduate.
Right.
I remember going to the theater with a bunch of friends, and we went to the AMC and watched it in IMAX, and it was, honestly, in IMAX was absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
Like the shots of the quantum realm were absolutely gorgeous. The perspective shots, like you said, like whenever they were small and like the buildings were big and all that other stuff, like some really cool shots. The I was going to mention too that the slow motion shots that he used in this
very
were
good.
really
yeah.
good too.
Yeah, very good. I wish there was actually more of them, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, like when Wasp was fighting Sonny Birch's men, and she was like kind of going slow motion through the car and stuff, like those are some really cool shots.
Or the bit with the motorcycle was fantastic. Or
that too, yeah. With the Pez, yeah.
I think one of my favorite shots, and talk about perspective shots, is when she's running across that knife, and this one scene toward the beginning was awesome.
Oh yeah, when she's like, she dodges the knife like literally perfectly, and then she's like, running off the other knife. Yeah, that was a great scene.
Needed a lot more of that for her, especially because, and you had that other one where she was jumping in and out of the car the way that she was. That was so dope, and I really wanted more of that for Wasp, honestly. And it does show a big thing that I brought up with the first film, which was that I think Wasp is always going to be the better candidate for these big kind of missions. She really does know what she's doing in that suit. I mean, she's studied it, she understands it a lot better, and I think that, again, this movie did a good job showing that part of it, I think, and really showing why she is the better candidate for this. But like, yeah, together, her and Scott as a team, I mean, they really work as this kind of really fun duo, man, that I just think I have a blast with every time it's on the screen. And it could just be something as simple as them going through that school, you know, that was a really good bit, actually, when they were doing the whole thing in the school, and Scott went from like big to like that little kid size when his suit was malfunctioning. So funny, and that was such a good bit between the two, and I wanted more of that too a little bit. And I did love the way that they played that with the lost and found and all, and that. And the joke that so funny.
And the joke that Hank made when they got back into the van is like, "Do you want some apple juice? Do you want a juice box and some cheese strings?" He's like, "Do you guys actually have that?"
And it was such an Ant-Man thing to say, which I really love, dude. And it really does. Like when I think about the delivery of Paul Rudd in this movie, man, it goes back to my point of the first one, where it doesn't really matter what movie he's doing as Ant-Man, he stays very consistent with that character, and I really liked a lot of the humor.
Yeah, I mean, in Civil War,
yeah,
Ant-Man was. I mean, you could tell in Civil War he was all there. Was Endgame when he came back, he was still Ant-Man. It was great.
Yeah,
every single movie that he's in, whether it's his solo movie or if he's a feature, I mean, he's just great.
Yeah, and I definitely thought they gave him one credit to this movie that I think was stronger than the first. I definitely think they gave him more bits, like to say, like the funny things to say. I think that his comedic chops are definitely more realized in this film than they were in the first film, because they gave him more to say that was funny and more to do that was funny in this one again. And I think that they really played Paul Rudd's talent a lot more. However, I also think that they didn't give him enough serious to balance it out. So I guess that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I wish that they had given him more emotional beats to balance it out. Although, again, the Cassie one was such a strong point and very, very much worked. And I like the way that those two play off each other so well. And I really like that they continued this sort of reluctant relationship between Wasp and Scott, because Hope and Scott, more or less, because that really does, it's a aspect that plays really well. And it actually, the way it made a lot of sense when they connected it back to the events of Civil War, about how she was upset with him over all that, and that made a lot of sense, because you always kind of wondered, like, how he came by the suit again and all that, and they did a good job, like, catching you up on all that and actually a short amount of time, and not having to go into it way too much, and a lot of it was just done through the relationship between Hope and Scott, where you realize what actually happened with that whole Civil War situation. And I like that, because it helps the movie stand on its own in a lot of ways too. So I really enjoyed that play. But the other thing I think is really strong is because the reason I think it's so strong is because we do end up seeing them come together at the end there, you know, and really, like, have the strongest that Hope and Scott's bond has ever been is really at the end of this movie. And I really enjoyed that. I like it so much that I would almost just watch a movie without action that's just about Hope and Scott and their daily lives, honestly. Like, even if it was like a Marvel one-off, I would really like to see that, because I really like their relationship. I think it's one of the stronger ones in the MCU for sure. So I really enjoyed that. The other part of that, though, the thing I didn't like so much from a writing perspective was when, okay, like, don't get me wrong, I understood it. This wasn't necessarily the worst decision in the world. It just, for me, it was kind of like, what the fuck? Because, so Scott calls Luis, you know, to come over to the lab, because he has to go over the business plans with them. and they get so upset with him, and I'm sitting there like, come on guys, you dragged him into this, like, chill out a little bit. And obviously it came back together in the end. It's not something that was like the worst thing in the world, but I was sitting there like from a perspective of the writing, I was kind of like, maybe I wouldn't have done that scene that way. But on the same hand, I can almost see it like being one of those things that was meant to be frustrating to us as the audience. The fact that they were upset with Scott again, and it was like, here we go again. And then Scott gets this really cool redemption out of it too. It was just one of those things where, yeah, it was frustrating. You know what I mean? It was frustrating to see like they dragged Scott into this. They didn't really set up a lot of parameters or rules about what they were doing over there. Yeah, should Scott have maybe asked? Yeah, but like on the same hand, his life goes on outside of what he's being dragged into here. At this point, he's helped out Captain America, but he's not this like fully formed Avenger or superhero at this point. And they just did not, Hank and Hope did not have much understanding of his side and his life, and I thought that was a little shitty on their part, and it sucks because I really like those characters. So when they have a character moment like that, it's all the more frustrating, I guess, for me. But on the same hand, I see both sides of it. You know what I mean? I see both sides of that coin.
Right.
But I also do like that they played an aspect where Scott really is trying to get on the right side of the law here. He's trying to start his own business.
Right.
And I guess that made that even more frustrating because they're bringing him back onto the wrong side of the law, all on their own. And he's really trying here. He's really trying to, make amends. And don't get me wrong. I mean, Hank and Hope, I mean, they really took care of him. They set it up to where the ant would do his daily routine, and they wouldn't even notice the difference. And when the shit did hit the fan and the cops were coming to the house, which was funny every time it happened, when Agent Wu walked in and Scott was just there. Every time he got one over on Agent Wu, it cracked me up. That played for really good bits. And I thought that was some of the stronger humor in the movie, honestly. And him just playing sick, and Agent Wu is such the reluctant agent. I'm not saying he's necessarily bad at his job, but he's reluctant to be in that position for sure, because he's sitting there, when Cassie's telling him about the vomit, and he's just like, wait, how much vomit? Like, how much vomit are we talking?
A lot.
And I love that they set up that dynamic with that character, which again just really played so much more into WandaVision. I mean, that's a man who's proud to be bringing coffee to people.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, just the end, I guess the last interaction between Scott and Agent Wu, when they're like, do you want to go for dinner?
Yeah, that was funny. That was so good.
Oh, that was so funny. Bit was so good.
He's like, it's funny. He really likes Scott. He wants to hang out with that guy. You know what I mean? Like he understands he's on the other side of the law, but he'd rather just be having dinner and hanging out and just being one of the guys. I really like that about him. I think it's a really funny aspect to add to the character for sure. Yeah. But the other part of this movie that I thought was a real strong point, but at times just kind of fell in and out, was this sort of, I'm trying to think of the way to put it. I mean, it was really just the sort of dynamic between hero and villain, because I was kind of talking about that with the first movie. I thought the dynamic between hero and villain was better because the performances were stronger. So I did enjoy that. Like, regardless of my complaints of the villains and how that some of them were very short-sighted, I did enjoy the chemistry between hero and villain a little bit better here when they were on the screen together. But unfortunately, that was another part of it that would kind of fall in and out of it. And again, I think like if you really just had more of the duo of Ant-Man and the Wasp, as the movie is titled, I think you would have really just had stronger scenes. But at the end of the day, like, I like that there are human moments within the moments of the villains too, though, because like you said, and I think it's a fair critique to say like Lawrence Fishburne was wasted, and I don't disagree. He definitely was as good of an actor as he is. But the thing is like, what I liked about the moment with him and Ghost is that there was a real human side to it, where him and Ghost they had Hank, Hope, and Scott all tied up in that moment, and there was this human moment where Scott's phone starts ringing. And I thought it elevated that scene so much more because we were dealing with such kind of weak villains in the first place, but at least that kind of peaked a little bit, or gave us a little bit of a peek into Lawrence Fishburne's human side and human heart a little bit when he let Scott answer the phone. Ultimately, like, you could tell he was going to do it anyway because he ended up picking up the phone, and even though he was saying, I don't think I can let you do that, you knew that he cared. And like, that was the one thing I did like about the Fishburne character, is he did care. He didn't want to do anything too hasty. Yeah.
Also, my favorite scene between him and Ghost was at the end, whenever he said that I'm not leaving you. Like, that part really made me like their chemistry, and like their two characters together, was that ending there when she's like, no, just leave me go. I did bad things. You haven't. And then he's like, no, I'm never leaving you. That really, it got me emotional. It hit me in the emotional side for sure.
You know what? And to your credit, when I saw that scene, because I know the one you're talking about, it is a better scene for them because it does show a lot more the human side, like I was talking about. What that really got me thinking, to your credit, was if we'd spent more time on these characters, that scene would have hit so much harder, because it is a very well performed scene. And it ties into one of the things that I love about the Ant-Man movies, is showing they're always kind of funny and light, but they do show these more human characters, and I think that's kind of the goal. Unfortunately, here it just fell flat, but I do like that humanity that they show at the end, because it does fall on brand with what Ant-Man, I think, is supposed to be ultimately. And unfortunately, it just, I don't know. Unfortunately, we just didn't get the great build to that final moment, I think, that we should have had. But it was a very well performed moment that did help you to understand their humanity and their relationship a little bit better. Wish we had more of it, though. I really wanted more of those moments when we saw it. I was like, gosh dang, because that was actually a really good one. The thing that I really enjoyed, but am kind of curious on for sure, and we'll get the explanation a bit more, is, I mean, we know what it has to do with for sure. I mean, it's touched on a little bit, I guess, to a degree, but the Janet's powers that she kind of obtains by the end of it is something that's kind of like left open right now. And I don't know if she's like out in the quantum realm banging Bill Murray and somehow he transferred his powers to her. I don't know, but because he's out there too, apparently, in this thing. But so we'll see how that plays. But like, I don't know what's going on. There's
whole civilizations out there, from what we can now. Well, we can see now, I guess, technically from the trailers, that there's civilizations out there, multiple different kinds of species.
Yeah.
Living in this quantum realm.
100%. So, that moment happens, and I'll be honest, I liked it because it did come as kind of a surprise there at the end with her powers, being able to heal Ghost. So I did like how Ghost played in that aspect for Janet, though, because it elevated, Janet's character a little bit more there. And so, but it's definitely got me curious. So I like that thread was kind of left open quite a bit for us to explore more of, I'm sure, in QUANTUMANIA, which that's exciting. So that's one thing that's definitely going to play. I'm very curious to see more of, I want to see what drives them to go back into the quantum realm. I think that's a little bit more of what I'm curious about more than anything. At the end, with the post-credit scene, we do see that they're still studying it, and Scott is very much a part of that experiment, and he's willing to be, which obviously goes completely awry, which I want to comment on that really quick. So I'm of two minds on that first post-credit scene where, he's in the quantum realm and they all fade to dust. So one end of me is like, okay, I like that post-credit scene. Actually, I love it, because a lot of post-credit scenes sometimes aren't that strong that we get anymore. So I did really love that post-credit scene. However, if you take it out of actually it was more of a mid-credit scene. So if you take it out of the middle of the credits and you just tack it on to the end of the movie, I think it just would have played a lot better and actually would have elevated the actual film itself a little bit more. I understand why it was a post or mid-credit, but I think like having that as your like actual ending of your movie, I think could have made that movie just a little bit stronger for me. And that's just because that would have been like, whoa, because you wouldn't have expected that to happen in the actual movie itself, I don't think. You know what I mean? Like, as much as you would from a mid-credit scene. Because I feel like the fact that they tacked it on as a mid-credit scene just made it a little bit more predictable as opposed to, like, just playing into it. Like, by the time he was in the quantum realm, I was like, I see what this is going to play into, you know? So I was predicting it immediately. And if you tacked it on right at the end of the movie, I think that because the movie was so low stake and everything on its own, I think that we would have not predicted it as much and it would have played stronger. Almost how I know you're not huge on the movie, but one of the moments I really loved about Multiverse of Madness was like when at the end with Doctor Strange, like his third eye opened up. I was like, that's a cool ending, because we haven't really seen that in a lot of MCU movies where they end on that kind of note, you know, where it's almost like it plays like a horror film a little bit. I would have liked that better here, but that's just one little, it's a nitpick at best. I'm just saying I think it would have played better. But
well, my theory for because you're wondering why they were, you know, going back to the quantum realm and stuff. I think that what's going to happen is that because they were going to the quantum realm to get more of those healing particles, I think what's going to happen is that they're going to try and pick up back where they left off with this experiment in the beginning of this movie.
Yeah.
But instead of them going into the quantum realm, is they're going to try and find a way to communicate with the people in the quantum realm to see if there's any way that they could come out and basically bring healing particles to them.
Yeah.
Or kind of like make almost like a subway tunnel from the quantum realm back out, make it easier to go into the quantum realm to get the healing particles and come out.
Yeah.
I feel like that's probably they're gonna be wanting to, or that's what they're gonna be trying to do in the beginning of QUANTUMANIA.
It's a really good theory.
Because I feel like I feel like that's what the and I actually liked that it was a mid-credit scene, because I think it sets up perfectly what's going to basically play into in QUANTUMANIA.
Yeah, I think that's a really good theory. I think it's not even necessarily a hole or a problem that I have with the theory, but it's more or less like, because if you write it correctly, you can make that work really well if you write it correctly. My only question about that, or the thing that I would find questionable if not done correctly, would be the fact that the last time they tried playing with the quantum realm stuff, and it didn't go too well for them. And I would feel like, I know that they're scientists, and I know that they're trying to advance shit, but I feel like they would be extremely hesitant to dive back into that after what happened last time. But anyway, go ahead. I digress.
Well, I mean, if you see in the beginning, if you see in the trailer, they obviously mess with it again, and they get sucked into the quantum realm.
That's so what obviously I'm saying.
they are trying to mess with it again, because well, I'm guessing that it's the healing particles. I don't see what else would drive them to want to tap back into the quantum realm if it's not, because obviously that's where, when they were snapped out, that's what they were doing. So when they snap back in, they're like, all right, well, let's try this again.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's ultimately what's going to drive them to mess with the quantum realm again, is to get these healing particles. Because obviously something or someone is quote unquote dying from contact with the quantum realm, and they're trying to get healing particles to be able to, or maybe, here's a theory, maybe Janet's powers are draining, and they want more healing particles to put inside of her so that she can keep growing her powers and keep having her powers of healing people. So that anytime someone goes back into the quantum realm and comes out, maybe something like that happens to them, and she can heal them with their powers. So that's probably where I'm leaning towards with my theory.
And I totally buy into that, and it's a good explanation. I'm just worried about the writing aspect about that and how they go about it. And that's only that's due to the short runtime.
And honestly, and based on the writing that some of the writing we've seen in this movie, I can understand that concern with the writing. I have a concern.
It's only because this movie is going to have a shorter runtime. We know that it's going to be like a 2-hour 5-minute as opposed to a 2:20, which I think honestly, if they really wanted to draw it out, it could be a 2:20. I just know Peyton Reed doesn't like to go that long with his movies, and that's fine. I just hope they execute that properly. That's all. Because I do want them to harken back to, the risks of it and the events that have happened prior and how, because that will just add all the more stakes to the film. And I'm not really worried about the movie overall having stakes, because I do think Kang is really going to be a huge presence in the movie and bring those stakes
Well,
the
this
way
is
that I wanted.
this is his longest runtime movie for the Ant-Man
Yeah.
trilogy, but I do feel like with based on what I saw in the trailer, I do feel like the runtime is going to be too short. I feel like you could easily make this like a 2.5 hour movie
Yeah.
for sure. Especially with everything especially since we know we're going to be basically the whole time in the quantum realm. I really do hope that they don't spend much time outside of the quantum realm.
Yeah.
Since this movie is literally called Quantumania, I hope it's only like 10 minutes, maybe not even that outside of the quantum realm. But I definitely do think that you could have made this like, yeah, I feel like for sure you could have made this movie at least 2.5 hours with what, for one, where it's in the quantum realm, so you can definitely spend a lot of time in there. And two, with everything that's going to happen in this movie, at least what I think, you could definitely have made this movie a little longer.
Yeah, no, for sure. It all depends. I mean, we can come out of it and say that was the perfect length. I mean, who knows? It's
True.
possible. I
Yeah.
mean, I really hope that is the feeling we get from it. But no, dude. All in all, like I said, this movie here, it definitely has. I don't like it as much as the first by any means, but I definitely think that it did get me excited. It hyped me up a little bit more for Quantumania. It planted those seeds. I loved how it all kind of, despite the mess that it had, I think there toward in the second half, I think it did all come together, and it made the movie at least likable. It's a good movie at the end of the day.
Right.
I was just
For
really,
sure.
I don't know. I think, and again, I do like it better than my initial watch of it, because again, I think that the marketing for this one just made this movie so underwhelming, because it did give out a lot of those best action bits out in the trailer, and I thought that just played
For sure.
underwhelming. And now that we're so far removed from that, and all the hype and all the Endgame and Infinity War hype, I think that I can look at it as a singular project now and appreciate it for that. And it's good in that regard. It just could have been better in a lot of other respects. And one of the things that, dude, yeah, you're right. They got to do more with Ant-Man and the Wasp in this next one. I mean, it's called Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, so you would really hope that they definitely give Evangeline
they should have done that in this one, given the title. But yeah, hopefully they give. I feel like this one for sure is going to be solely based around, I know Hank and Janet are in this one, but this one, I feel like this one's definitely going to be more centered around Scott, Hope, and Cassie.
Yeah.
Because like it's almost like Cassie now has two different families. She has her human family with Scott's ex-wife and Paxton, and her, I guess, not so human family with Scott and Hope. It's almost like she has two moms and two dads, which is interesting. I definitely think that, yeah, it's going to be more of like a family-centered, oriented movie with Cassie, Scott, and Hope, and I can't wait to see what they do with the three of them together. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't get buried under a whole lot of other things, like I felt like it did in this one. And that's probably my main concern going into Quantumania. But I do think even if that is the case, a lot of other things will come up and play a lot stronger than they have in these first two movies. So I'm not like worried about it as a movie overall. I'm just more worried about like not getting enough of things that I would like to see. And I do hope it does play into Janet too at the same time, because that was, and again, I understand that she was a small part of the story. But it made me want more of her, because I want to see Michelle Pfeiffer in that performance, and her really fleshing out a character in the MCU. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer is incredible. And unfortunately, we just didn't get a lot of her in this movie, and that's not a problem. That's just the story didn't dictate a lot of Janet in this, and so, but it did get me excited to see more and curious to learn more about Janet, and
For sure.
and to see how her and Hank play off each other. Again, I think that they did definitely get, just from those little moments, like we said, they got two fantastic actors to play that couple, and you really bought into it in the little moments that we did have, and you bought that it was Hope's mother, like that relationship with that family was there. But now we got kind of a, how do I say it, like a mixed family almost, with Scott and Cassie kind of being a part of it now. And I do hope that the family aspect is at the forefront of it. I think that that's what needs to play first and foremost for Quantumania over all the other sci-fi stuff and everything else that's going to be setting up clearly.
I definitely do think that's going to be I think that's definitely going to be the driving force. With getting them out of the quantum realm, because as we know, from at least from what I remember from the trailers, that Kang is pretty keen on helping Scott and his family get out of the quantum realm.
Yeah.
And I feel like the whole family is going to definitely be the driving force in that.
Yeah, 100%,
sure.
dude, 100%. I think that the other thing that I definitely want, and this is a small request, and even if it's for 2 minutes, I just want it in the movie. Bobby Cannavale and Judy Greer, bring them back as Cassie's mom and stepdad. I really want them back just for 2 minutes and just do one bit with them, because I do think they are such a core foundation of what makes these Ant-Man movies good too. I really like them as a part of that family. So I hope we just get like 2 minutes with them. It doesn't have to be long.
It'd be cool to see like in the beginning of the movie before they get sucked back into the quantum realm, kind of see like a little bit between Cassie and them too.
It's a small request. It's not going to be a deal breaker,
pretty cool.
But I just want a little bit there because I want it to play consistent with these first 2 movies for sure in that respect. And any way that you could just make it feel consistent with that will be very helpful for sure. The other thing is too, I mean, like we got a little bit more of Hope Van Dyne and like Infinity War and Endgame and all that, or mainly Endgame. So I mean that was cool to see, and we definitely see that she's definitely capable of, being able to fight in this big epic kind of scale battle. Same with Ant-Man, I suppose, because we did get to see that reunion in Endgame, so that part's covered already. So now I just really want it to be this very much focused on their relationship. Don't go back. I mean, I want them to mention it, but don't go back too far into those events. You know what I mean? And just kind of like, let's focus on the story moving forward. Kind of like they did here coming off the Civil War stuff. It was like they kept the Civil War stuff to a minimal, and then they moved on and let this be their own standalone film. And while I do want this to set up stuff for the MCU, clearly Kang's going to be in there. I just don't want it to, I want it to feel like its own standalone Ant-Man movie at the same time that plays really well with the other two and makes the trilogy feel complete at the same time. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for at this point. And other than that, I'm ready to have fun with it. I mean, whatever they're going to give us, I'm really ready to just sit there and have fun with it. I'm not going to set my expectations incredibly high because, like I said, this one I think was underwhelming for me for that reason. So I want to just kind of give it whatever it's going to give me and try to have fun with it, but on the same hand, just make it complete. But the thing that I do wonder, I was going to ask you this, do you think we see Ghost again? Do you think that comes back up in this third movie, or do you think they're done with that character?
No, I think they're done.
Okay. I was wondering.
I think they're definitely done.
I think, okay, like obviously there's going to be a lot happening in Quantumania, so it's not a thing that's going to be a deal breaker, but however, I do think there's an opportunity to enhance this movie if they did bring it back around somehow. Even just some little way. If it doesn't happen, it's fine. Obviously, we know that there's a lot this is facing, but to bring it back around and enhance this one would be cool.
We don't know what's happened to her between the end of this movie and the events of the snap. That's the only problem that we don't know what the hell's happened to her and her new quote unquote father, Lawrence Fishburne. Like we don't know what we don't know where they are, what they've been doing, where we don't know anything about them. So it'd be kind of hard to do that because I honestly don't want to see another explanation. I don't want to see another explanation of where the hell they've been, what they've been doing. I don't want any. So I just feel like for that reason, I think they're just done with that character altogether.
Yeah, I predict the same.
They tried it in this movie and they saw that it may have worked, maybe it didn't. I don't know. It was like a one-time thing, and now they're just gonna move on.
I know people that really love this movie, but I don't think the Ghost character really landed with audiences as much as they were hoping. So I don't really see it either. I don't think that they're. And plus, I mean, we can leave it off here and it's fine, I guess. I just think that there is an opportunity down the line to maybe enhance this one if they were to bring it back. And it doesn't have to be. That's the beautiful thing about having the shared cinematic universe is they don't have to bring Ghost back around. And Quantumania to enhance that character. I mean, there's multiple TV shows coming, you know, and things that they could bring her if they wanted to enhance her for this movie even more. Maybe make this movie a better watch, like kind of like they did with Wanda, man. I thought that was one of the best things they ever did in WandaVision was they enhanced Age of Ultron so much just from those moments that they gave us with Wanda and all that, filling in those gaps. And I thought they did a really good job there. So it's an opportunity that they have. But like I said, I do think that I don't think the character landed, you know, I just don't. And unfortunately, but we'll see, man. I'm very interested, but looking forward to it for sure, dude. And that's pretty much the movie, though. I don't really have anything else to add other than that. I'm really looking forward to Quantumania. I think that this has been fun to revisit these two to get us hyped up for that, and it definitely has helped for sure. And I hope that the conversations have helped all you guys out there for sure, getting hyped up. And the other thing that we got to do, or the last thing we got to do, is grade this one. Where you going with this one?
I would almost go like a might watch.
I'm feeling the same.
Honestly,
I'm feeling about the same. I'm feeling might watch for sure. And again, it's a good movie. I think that the thing about this one, it's if you've seen the trailer, though, you've almost seen this movie. I mean, the trailer gives a lot away, and it can be kind of summed up in just that little bit. But on the same hand, if you do just want to sit down with a fun action movie, this is one to watch. I mean, you know, so it
with
really
a lot
depends.
of comedy in it that will make you laugh,
and it does
give it a watch for sure.
It does plant stuff for Quantumania, so it's definitely worth watching for that. But I'm still gonna go just might watch overall. I just don't think it's it's not hitting the levels that the first one did for me, unfortunately. First one's definitely much more of a blast, and but yeah, watch it if you got nothing else, I guess. But look, guys, that's our review or discussion on Ant-Man the Wasp. I'm really looking forward to Quantumania, and I hope you guys are as well. Let us know what you thought of this film or think of this film. Does it still hold up for you? I know a lot of people that love this one, and that's cool. I would really like to hear why and where you agree and disagree with us, honestly, and let us know for sure. I think that there's a lot of really good points to be made about this one, probably, that I just haven't heard myself or haven't thought of. So make sure you comment that below for sure. And then before we get out of here, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave some feedback in the comment section, share this with your friends, hit the bell for notifications. Once again, I am Don Martino. Jose, I will see you on the other side of Quantumania. But thank you for joining, and where can people find you before we go?
You guys can find me at my socials here, extractgaming_ on all socials, and on Twitch as well. I try and stream at least 3 or 4 days a week. I'm streaming tomorrow, actually. It's been good fun. You know, a lot of people watching me and just, you know, building a community. It's been a lot of fun, and I can't wait to just keep growing it, making new friends and getting more people to join the community. So make sure you guys go check me out over there.
Yes, and before I go ahead and name off my tags here, I do want to say I didn't forget about you guys. I said there was going to be a big announcement on the show. It's just not quite ready yet. So it will probably be next week. I do apologize. I really thought it'd be ready by now, but it's just not quite ready yet. There's still a couple little minor tweaks and touches I need to make on what I'm going to be announcing here. So next week for sure, we'll be talking about it at some point. Even if I have to make a solo video, you'll find it on the channel for sure. So make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it wherever it is. So but for sure, it's going to be an exciting announcement, and I can't wait for it. It is happening, the thing. It's just not quite ready, the details of it. So gonna try to get that worked out by the time we do another one here. Anyway, look, guys, please, before I get out of here, though, follow me. I'm over at Dom_Martino_ on Twitter, Dom_Martino_ official on Instagram, and then follow the Extract Media pages, Extract Media blog across Twitter and Instagram. I've been Don Martino. That's been Mr. Jose Espinel, and we will talk to you guys later.
See you.